podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
And on this podcast, we normally focus on the Weird War Tales comic book series published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. However, on this episode, we are covering the Weird War Tales comic book published by DC Vertigo in the year 2000. It's a one-shot, it's a special, and so this is a special mission, and it's a redeployment. It's whatever the heck I want to say it is. And before I say anything else, our good buddy Rich here, your gracious co-host, is going to step in and save you from whatever that was going to be.
Got a few bits of retroactive history for y'all. I've mentioned shooting the Saving Private Ryan package at a full auto range in Las Vegas years ago. 45 pistol, 03 Springfield, M1 Garand, M1 carbine, Thompson BAR, and 1919 machine gun. Well, I went to Ohio over the 4th and added 3 more to the list. The German MP40 Schmeisser and the British Sten submachine gun and Bren light machine gun. As mentioned in the show previously, Star Trek's James Doohan was struck by 6 rounds from a Bren off Juno Beach on D-Day by a nervous Canadian sentry. All were fun to shoot, but we all know there's something about a machine gun. Also, I submitted a change request to the Grand Comics database for WWT 54's intro page, actually being done by Romeo Tanghal instead of Jerry Teleak, and provided the proof from issue 57's letters page. Needless to say, with proof like that, the change was approved. Here you are, the Weird Warriors podcast, again, improving your overall comics experience. The opinion about Juan Ortiz having done the art on issue 53's intro page, also not Teleak, is being checked through GCD and Paul Levitz. Stay tuned. And the last little item, which I deliberately did not put in the script because I wanted to surprise Max, I'm going to put him in a bad mood. I've mentioned animals used as weapons of war a couple of times on the show. In Weird War Tales 22, we discussed the bat bomb, incendiary devices attached to bats by adhesive that were then to be dropped over Japanese cities and cause raging fires, and anti-tank dogs, a Soviet weapon that attached explosives to large dogs that then threw themselves under enemy tanks. If you want a more in-depth look, go back and listen to that episode or use your Google thingy. What I'm here today for, to put Max in the aforementioned bad news right at the beginning of the show, was something that was called the cat bomb. Waits for reaction.
No, legit, I just by accident knocked my beer over on myself. So I am soaked right now in beer, but it looked like a reaction to what you just said. And that is definitely staying in the episode. And I'm just going to sit here and soak in it. So who cares? Okay. Who cares? I still saved most of it, but awesome. Alcohol abuse was committed once you said cat bomb. Coincidence?
Don't waste it.
Maybe.
Anyway, the problem with these bombs wasn't just that they involved the use of cats. The problem was that the logic that led to their testing, like the bat bomb, they were never actually used in combat, was so crazy it approached a kind of aerodynamic alchemy. The Allies had a problem guiding a bomb, which was moving, through the air, which was moving, to a ship, which was moving, from a plane, which was moving, was no easy task. It was an important task, and so people entered into that horrific state of mind known as brainstorming, during which there are supposedly no bad ideas. Someone from the Office of Strategic Services, grandparent to the CIA, let their mind drift to cats. Cats always land on their feet, which meant they had to have some sort of aerodynamic skill. Cats also did not like to get wet. Strap a cat to a bomb, then show it a giant stretch of ocean and a single dry boat, and it would head for the boat, guiding the bomb in with it. Someone else at the OSS bought that logic, and lo, the cat bomb was tested. The cats in question, they found, passed out halfway through the drop and thus weren't even awake to guide the bombs to the destinations. Although how the cats would have managed it, even if they were conscious, is still the big question. The project was scrapped, and all that lingers of it now is the realization that when cats scratch the hell out of us and then demand to be fed, they're not being cranky, they're just getting retribution.
Man, like that reminds me of there's some joke or, meme in the original sense that goes around about you take a cat and to its back you strap a piece of buttered bread.
Yep,
and then you drop it. And it's just going to spin forever and you could generate free power for the universe. Because like the bread's trying to land, but the cat has to land on its feet. So
I've seen that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I found out about that recently. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to drop that on Max in an episode. That's just being done.
I did notice the asterisk and I'm like, oh, he's got something.
Yes.
Little did I know I would douse myself in my Founders All Day IPA on my goddamn lap. But
and spoiler alert, folks, this is going to be a long episode. So he's going to be literally sitting in his juices.
I could get up and change, but this is going to take long enough already. And like I haven't smelled like beer before.
Oh yeah, never. Anywho, Intel report. Another standalone issue from an ongoing title that I know I won't do a special mission for unless you vote for it. Anarchy #7, published by DC Comics in November 1999. Script by Alan Grant, pencils by Norm Breyfogle, inks by Joe Rubinstein, part of DC's Day of Judgment story arc. The Spectre has been possessed by Asmodel and froze hell, releasing an army of the dead upon the earth. The effects are built in Washington, D.C., where the honored dead at Arlington also come back to life. The vigilante Anarchy quickly finds himself way over his head fighting the undead masses, but help comes from the unlikeliest of sources. The ghost of Jeb Stewart and the geriatric crew of the Haunted Tank. Spoiler alert, lots of killjoy in this story.
Man, I just gotta jump in. Like, I loved the Alan Grant and Norm Breyfogle Batman period, except for stupid Anarchy. But the fact that the Haunted Tank shows up in an issue, I definitely didn't know until right now because I hated that character. So I was not gonna read that series. So, people, if you want me to suffer and read an Anarchy issue, vote often and vote early and all that stuff.
Title details. DC Vertigo one-shot 2000 that follows the 4-issue mini from 1997. Boom. Next. Inserting salty language warning here.
As we kind of intimated at the top here, this Weird War Tales special, along with the 4-issue miniseries that we covered, they're all available to read on the DC Universe Infinite service, which I subscribe to. So if you have an ultra tier membership, you can read these issues legally on your computer. So that's DC Universe Infinite Ultra. Definitely not too many words in that title. I don't see the 2010 special on there just yet, and their offerings of war comics in general are pathetic on the app. But hey, these 5 things with Weird War Tales in the title are on there on the service.
Moving on. Cover detail. Art by Phil Hale. $4.95. The Weird War Tales logo Max hates is white. A figure wearing a red radiation suit hangs in midair, casting a shadow on the wall behind him. He's barefoot and holds a pistol. His skin is deathly white and his nails are black. He wears a horned gas mask and looks down on the ground. The severed heads of 2 animals hang from his belt. Cover date, April 2000. Date of release, February 23rd, 2000. No killjoy going on the CNC. Yeah, probably one of the weirdest covers to any comic I have ever picked up in my life. I had a hell of a time just trying to describe what was going on, and I still had to kick it down the hall to Max for further input. In and of itself, the art is really good, but if I am this put out at whatever the scene itself is actually portraying, then I just have to give it a downvote. Not a good start at all.
Okay, so this is one of those images that it looks really cool at first glance, but it gets less meaningful the more you look at it, especially in the context of it being a comic book cover. Sure, there are elements of war and weirdness here, but they're all just kind of tossed together, literally seeming as though a bucket of genre adjacent ideas were thrown at a wall just to see what would stick. Now, Phil Hale, the artist here, is a well known, very talented, and accomplished artist in the realms of sci fi and fantasy. He's got whole volumes devoted to his work that you walk into your Barnes and Noble and see on the shelf probably right now. So the work here itself is good. I just doubt he had any idea what it was going to be used for. My main issue with the image itself is the long trailing bolt of supposedly fabric that seems to be hanging down from the floating figure. It looks more like it's holding the figure up in the air, like those elements of a statue for a flying character that try to hide the fact that the figure is still very much connected to the base of the sculpture. It looks too solid, is what I'm saying. I should mention that Phil Hale's art was used as the cover to one of my favorite albums, Understand by Naked Raygun. We'll have a picture in the album. Was likely also just a piece that the record label acquired without Mr. Hale having any idea who the band was. I don't know, but it looks like a lot of his other work. It kind of even looks like this piece of work. It's a little more grounded in Road Warrior imagery, as you'll see, but it could have been something they bought the rights to. You can get away with just having a vibes-like connection with an album cover, though. And Hale's ever-present, as I mentioned, pseudo Mad Max post-apocalyptic style looks right at home on the cover of a punk band's record. Hale's style reminds me a lot of another fan favorite genre artist, Gerald Brom, known to most as simply Brom, B-R-O-M, who not only shares a similar style, but has a definite fixation, at least for a good part of his career, on post-apocalyptic, barbaric wasteland-style imagery too. Anyway, this cover makes for a cool painting. It doesn't really work as a cover for this comic book, though. So, as I said, enjoy not only the image of the album cover, but if you don't know who Naked Raygun is, go look it up on YouTube or whatever, and play it and listen to some good punk music, will you? All right. So that's the cover. And while you guys put Naked Raygun on in the background, Rich will take you into the first story in this issue.
Nosh and Barry and Eddie and Joe. 8 pages. Script by Garth Ennis, baby. Art by Jim Lee. Synopsis. There was Nosh and Barry and Eddie and Joe, and they'd all gone on leave together because they couldn't be arsed going home. Barry was in the middle of a divorce, and Eddie and Joe were working on ones of their own. And Nosh never did fuck with all his time off anyway. So when Joe came up with the idea of a week's fishing up in the neck of the woods, the general consensus was, why not? So that's why they were there. It had begun to rain, so the 4 men took shelter in their SUV. Guys will be guys, especially those in the military, and they joked about sheep shagging being the only chance Nosh had of getting any. Joe pulled an envelope of photos from under his jacket and handed them around. Shit, the boss saw these, he'd have your bollocks off, Barry comments. There are photos of the 4 of them during Desert Storm, mooning the camera, posing gallantly with their weapons, drinking booze, and doing all the other stuff soldiers do while deployed. Fuck's sake, these are good. What's that one? Is that near the end? That's the morning after the power station. You can tell since Barry still has shit in his pants. Hey, is it only me or are we a little bit fucking cool here? It's only you, Eddie. Joe laughs as he pockets the snaps. We're totally fucking cool there. We did a fucking good job in that place, didn't we? It's easy for you to say, wanker, Eddie replies. All you 2 tits did was shoot at the fucking moon while me and Nosh did all the real work. Real work, me arse, Joe retorts. Any prick can place a fucking charge. We'd do about 200 Junies coming at us that night. And I bet you the Republican Guard, too. They were wankers, Eddie laughed. The only thing that fucks me off after all this time and effort we put in, fucking Saddam's still there. Politics, innit? Way it works, pal. Some yank draws a line on a map and says stop. So we stop. Doesn't matter if the job's not been done. Same old shite. Yeah, but you think about it. All the time each of us has been with the regiment, all the places we've been to, and what have we really achieved? Ireland or Africa or Colombia or this latest thing. All we seem to do is nibble away at the opposition and then fuck off and leave them to it. We never finish the job. Aye, but then I forget, lady. Some of the folk we've been fighting for aren't all that great themselves. That DEA bastard, he was bent as a fucking right angle. We're just soldiers, you kin? It didn't matter how fucking elite we are or any of that shite. We still do as we're told. No, the way I look at it, it's not the rights and wrongs of it, it's the job itself. Fucking right, Haggis. When we're out there, right, and we're doing whatever it is we're doing, and I got no worries whatsoever. No mortgage, no bills, no wife honking at me all the time. It's just me and the job, innit? So as long as I do me stuff and I can rely on you lot to do yours, everything will be fine. And if it's not, well, sod it. At least I'm with me mates when I get slotted. And I'll tell you all something else and all. It's the adrenaline rush. Eddie knew Barry and Joe were right. A lot of the times he more or less thought the same thing. Photos are funny, he says as Joe pulls the snaps back out. They're just little pieces, snapshots like. Just some little bits of some big thing you've done, like when you were on some holiday or whatever. You were pissed or high or getting bleeding shot at, so you can't remember everything you got up to. You get frustrated because you don't know what's going on between the photos. You look at them and you think, Jesus, what was I doing there? Nosh pops open the glove box and hands Eddie a sealed manila envelope. I know what you mean. These are photos I took in the Gulf. Afraid there's only one set. First page tells you what's on them. The title of that page, marked Most Secret, reads, Corporal Harris Raping a Child. The photos in the envelope are distributed amongst the others, and a deathly silence fills the vehicle as Nosh continues. I don't know if you remember, but the day before the exfil, I was doing the navigating. I took us 80 clicks off course without any of you realizing, and we stopped for the night in a wadi on the edge of some low hills. 5 clicks beyond the hills was a mall settlement. Nothing much to speak of, goat herders and their families, maybe 200 people, dozen or so of the local militia for defense. I say was, because the 3 of you wiped it off the map that night. What the fuck are you talking about? I got a brew on and laced it with some light sedative. Once you'd all flaked out, I did the job I was attached to this job to do in the first place. You 3 were selected as test subjects after a covert psychological review of regimental personnel with regard to motivation and aggression. You should be flattered. You weren't the only British troops to undergo medical experimentation during Desert Storm, but I can assure you no one else underwent this one. My task was to inject each of you with a highly secret chemical compound, then to administer a stimulant to counteract a sedative, and then, in the words of my commanding officer, get the fuck out of there. Thus I duly did. I took the pictures with a starlight lens at a distance of 200 meters. The compound, the drug really, it boosts you, it raises your endurance and strength beyond normal human levels by several 100%, in fact. It also overrides the messages your brain is sending your body as it tries to slow you down to the levels it's used to. And overridden along with those messages are certain others of judgment, restraint, morality. In effect, it erases all but your most base and basic instincts. As you can see, Eddie is shaking and sweating looking at the photos. You don't remember because neither mind nor body can take sustained bouts of such experience. All I had to do was drive you out of the village and wait till you woke up. We moved on to the exfil that same morning. None of you were any the wiser. The only question now is, are you prepared to officially join the test program? Because with continual dosage with the compound will erode any mental blocks and you'll start remembering your actions after each incident. Your willing participation will obviously then become essential. Do you want to let it all fade away again, including this little chat? Or do you want to be the boys who always get the job done? Nosh, mate, fuck's sake, Nosh, what is this? I mean, stop it. It's not fucking funny. Gosh! Call me Lieutenant Corporal Harris. A glance in the mirror showed Joe and Barry smiling, and as Joe sat there, silent and unmoving, praying it would stop him thinking, the realization came that he was smiling too. No killjoy? Max, take it away.
Okay, so comments and commendations on this chilling opening tale. I'm going to put my thesis statement for this story right here at the top. Garth Ennis was somehow able to turn Jim Lee into an actual comic book artist. Sure, Jim Lee's designs and drawings shaped a generation or two of superhero artists, and his images certainly tend to look cool, but I've never thought much of him as a comic book artist when it comes to storytelling chops and sheer craft. His stuff always seems posed for the poster shot, and his downtime scenes have usually reeked of impatience to me, just biding time for the next big splashy action figure pinup page that he can, sell. On these pages, though, in this story, Garth Ennis' script reveals that Lee can do everything that I thought he was basically incapable of. Does he just not use this set of skills on purpose, knowing it's tough to sell an original page of art that just features 4 normal dudes talking in a car? Maybe. But as for what's on display here, it's all about the story, all about the page, and all about building tension and keeping interest in what is essentially an 8-page static scene of 4 talking heads. The page designs are no slouches, with full bleed art combining with depth uses of floating panels throughout and colors that are muted, but somehow not dull to look at. There's a lesson for a lot of colorists out there. You can use muted colors and not have everything just look like someone turned the lights out. There's actual dynamism in these talking head scenes, with shifts in focus, perspective, and facial expressions that keep you engaged even though all of the characters are just sitting in a car. Having said all that, Lee still finds ways to be flashy without sacrificing the storytelling, as on page 2, panel 3, with that great scene of all the photos being held up for us to see. The use of stark white backgrounds beneath the panels on the floating panels on pages 4 and 5, and the sinister turn of Nosh in panels 4 to 5 on page 5. That's really, it's simple change between one character's expression and the lighting on his face, but you just feel like the devil just stepped into the room. The red background and silhouette work on the final page were cool and effective touches too. And oh yeah, the writing. There was a writer here, some guy. Ennis has a miss now and then for me, but he did miss here. This is a great example of what he's really good at, lulling you in with realistic conversations, characters who feel authentic, and surroundings that seem mundane, until, at some point, the knife twists, and twists hard. Then it twists again. This was a fantastic opening story that deserves credit all on its own, but also, again, from me, gets major kudos for making an artist like Jim Lee step up and show some effort beyond just playing his hits.
We start with a massive splash in this book with Garth Ennis and Jim Lee. Okay then, I had Garth sign the cover to this one when I met him at Terrificon. Have to imagine he doesn't see too many of these dropped in his lap. Check the album. Punisher, Preacher, Boys. The most frightening thing about this story is how completely plausible it is. Governments have been playing games with mind-altering drugs for decades. If you told me this was a true story, I wouldn't be shocked. Not a whole lot of art call-outs on this one for me anyway, since the whole story is 4 dudes sitting in a car talking, but I'll acknowledge page 6 panels 1 and 2, and page 7 panel 5, and page 8 panel 1 of Corporal Harris, seeing the image of the drug-induced horrors he inflicted. Page 2 panel 3 and 4 of Boys Being Boys, the photos, gets a bit of a annoying chuckle out of me too. Ennis pulls a sly one when Nosh acts like the nerd of the bunch the first half of the story, the butt of all the one-liners, and then he turns into the one driving the whole train. Soldiers since day one have blamed politicians for losing wars or stopping before the work was done. Vietnam and Desert Storm come to mind the easiest. I'll table Iraq II and Afghanistan. This came out about a year and a half before 9/11, so that crack about Saddam still being there hits a bit different now. Not Garth's best, but this is still a very solid effort that fits in fine here. Me like a lot.
All right, so first story's out of the way. We're both pretty pleased with it. Let's see how we do with story number 2. That one's called Imagine. It's 8 pages long. Script is by Miles Gunter. Art by Marcello Frusin, Frusin. I don't know. Never heard of these people, so let's see how the story goes. Our synopsis starts off with the main character writing in a journal or thinking to himself, so I'm going to read that to you. It goes like this. Never figured I'd be stuck in Saigon drawing propaganda leaflets, but some desk sergeant noticed I'd spent a few semesters in art school, so it was stars and stripes for me. When an assignment came down for a morale piece from the front lines, I jumped at the chance. And chance jumped me back. Charlie swarmed us from all sides. We made a break for the jungle. We didn't get far. I shut my eyes to stop the nightmare, but it doesn't stop. All I can see is the unfinished work in my head. All the things that I'll never be able to put down on paper. 5 of us had been taken captive and were taken to one of their villages on a river. But the captain couldn't be bothered with prisoners. He pulled out his Tokarev? Which way? Tokarev. He pulled out his Tokarev and started executing the others with a well-aimed shot to the head. I don't know why I do it, but I do. I get down on my knees and draw in the dirt. Draw the last thing I'll ever see. The scarred face of my impending death. But the bullet doesn't come. Instead, I'm taken to the captain's quarters and sat down at a table. He taps a piece of paper with his pistol. It's a lot of P right there. I don't have to speak Vietnamese to know what he wants. I take a piece of charcoal and I draw his face. I haven't used charcoal in months and it shows, but the captain seems to like it. A few minutes later, I get my reward, a bowl of rice. I shut my eyes as I gobble it down, but I can't hold back the tears. Holding back the tears. Oop. Then this is what happens all the time with this issue online. It bombs out on me. So let's see. 2, 3, 4. It does pick up where I left off, though, which is good. All right. So remember to edit out me doing holding back the tears. We go back into some first person narration straight from the page here. And so it begins. The next day, the captain sits for a portrait. And the next. Days pass as I figure it's only a matter of time before he gets bored, before I get popped. I'm really starting to get his face down. Some nights, I dream about escaping. I torch all the gooks and save the day. Then I return home and set the art world on fire. Other nights, I dream about them coming for me. The soldiers that died. They eat me alive. I feel every last bite until I'm nothing. Soon, I've worked my way through portraits of all the top dog gooks. The captain asks me to draw other things. He keeps all the sketches, goes through the stack every evening, staring at them over and over again. Just what does he see in them? The way things were before we decided this tiny country was a threat to our way of life? The way things should be? There's another drawing he wouldn't like so much. One I work on only at night. One he wouldn't like at all. Time is a blur. I wait for the bullet that will take me away from this place. I pray for it. My prayers are answered. I fall asleep while working on the drawing of me using a flamethrower on my captives and the captain finds it. I get pistol whipped for my trouble, and I'm thrown outside in the rain. As he jams the Tokarev into the back of my neck, I knew that this is the way it had to end, with him standing above my corpse in a muddy ditch. All the rest was bullshit. Why he spares me, I don't know. I've betrayed him, of course, but something else, I suppose. Something beyond our control has brought us to this place. Something neither of us understands has bound us. Something we can only imagine. I see 3 F4s on an attack run in the village and run for my life as the jets drop their napalm payloads. The captain drops his pistol and accepts his fate. Doesn't try to stop me as I dive into the river. Fire raises everything in its path. Everything except me. I'm found and evacuated to one of our bases by Huey. My eyes are dead, hollow husks. But for the first time, I truly see. An image is burned into my brain like napalm. I caught a glimpse of it in his eyes, if only for a second, and it was glorious and indescribable, full of life, not death. If I can just put it down on paper, one thing's for sure, it'll be a masterpiece.
Killjoy. The Army name tapes in the story are white on black. They should be yellow on black. This was actually a pre-war pattern that was supposed to be phased out by the late 60s to black on green. I'll lead off the CNC. Another outstanding story by 2 people I'd never heard of before now. Story and art are so damn good. I could just scan the whole story into the album. I don't see any real duds. I'll get into this a bit more in the next story, but if I have a gripe, it's that there needs to be Vietnamese translation blocks were required. Dem no D, take him away after he's spared the first time. They draw, and my favorite, Duma, motherfucker, after he's spared the second time. This one grew and grew on me. By luck of the draw, this was the last story I scripted, and I apparently saved the best for last. Well, last words just spoiled right there. Sorry. This is another one of those stories where I could easily pick a panel on every page. The angles of perspective, silhouettes, colors, the overall craft of this thing is top tier. Page 2, panel 1, the helplessness of the bound captives as the executioner cometh. Page 3, panel 2, looking down into the captain's quarters. Pretty much all of page 5. It starts off with a peaceful, tranquil scene, birds, trees, clouds, and blue sky. And it ends in panel 6 with blacks, oranges, and reds of the same spot being reduced in flame. Panel 2 does both, drawing a live water buffalo from the carcass of a dead one in a water-filled shell crater. Page 8, panel 6, the floating eyes of the captain floating in air by the Hueys flying into the sunset, flames in the pupils. This could easily be in the conversation for the best story of all the redeployment issues.
Yeah, it could, for sure. I was also completely unfamiliar with this creative team, and I was just as pleasantly surprised as you were, Rich. There, all done. Next. All right, fine. You think I'd let you all off that easy? You know, I like me some well-used floating panels, and brothers and sisters, this story's got them. It also kind of has a host logo thingy going on, and it's pretty cool too. So you know I'm buttered up right there on page 1, which also has some neat, as Rich mentioned, silhouette work on it in panel 4. I like how the main character's musings are used to technically give us a revenge of the wrongly killed corpses, Weird War Tales trope in panel 4 of page 5. When you get the zombies in the scene where he's telling us about his dreams. And yes, we have more cool silhouette work in panel 6 of both pages 5 and 6 to enjoy as well. As Rich said, the art throughout this entire story is great, with the panels depicting the artist drawing something inside the comic book that the artist is a character in, pulled off very well. And that just can't be easy. The story was nicely poetic too, with some very fitting Weird War Tales style irony at the end. Even if that one panel that Rich called out with the eyes and the choppers flying by, it kind of reminded me of a famous movie poster. I swear I've seen almost that same image on one of those movies about war. And Rich would know better than me, I would think, but it really looked like they lifted it off a movie poster to me. It's still well done. It's an excellent second tale. So, hey, Rich, let's see if we can keep that rolling to number 3.
You might be thinking of the Apocalypse Now poster. Maybe.
I might.
I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. So
yeah, it's rare that I get a moment of deja vu for a war movie poster. So God knows if it's connected to reality at all. I just had that feeling.
Okay, story number 3. I'm going to slaughter this. I'm going to apologize in advance. The Ishilangu, 8 pages. Script by Chuck Dixon. Art by Enrique Alcatena. Synopsis. Natal, January 20th, 1879. A Zulu chieftain waves a spear and shield as he riles up his followers. The whites have crossed the Miziyathi and march into the heart of our homeland. It is up to us to wash our spears in their blood. For the Zulu to survive, they all must die. Every man shall carry his assegai and shield into battle. The rifles are many, but we are many more. They will run before us and be slaughtered. Afterwards, 2 Zulu warriors, Sihayo and Mabande, discuss the coming battle. Do you think the white men will run? Mabande asks. They believe their guns will protect them, Sihayo replies. They will stand and they will fight. I have knowledge of things. I have magic. I will wash my spear and win the Isikoko and be allowed to marry as the older men. Magic? You have magic? I carry 1 Ishilangu, 1 shield, and I wear another. Sihayo pulls a small stone out of his right earlobe and shows it to Mabande. This is what you seek. This holds a spell. This simple stone. Its magic will protect you. He then tells the story of meeting with the tribal shaman at his hut. What will you pay for this? The shaman had asked, poking the fire with a stick. I have no wives. I have no cattle. But I will wash my assegai in the blood of our enemies, and then I will marry. What are wives to me? You are brave, and yet you seek protection from the white man's guns. Only that I might live and prosper, that I may make many strong sons, that I may keep Sechwayo, our king, in his kraal. The shaman then offers Sihayo this small stone. Then take the stone, Yishilangu. With that worn upon you, no man may kill you. No man. January 22nd. Again, the Zulu chieftain rallies his men as the attack plan is drawn in the dirt. The whites are at a rock called Islandwana. There we will hang them on the horns of the buffalo. 2 impi will sprout like horns to either side of the whites. Unseen, they will surround them. We are the head of the buffalo. We will ram the enemy in the open and distract him from the closing horns aimed at his guts. We will be the first to kill, a warrior exclaims. And to die, mutters Mabande. Not I, Sihayo whispers. The Zulu army moves out, and with a mighty Usuthu cry, charges the British forces. The British open fire, cutting down a host of attacking Zulus, including Mabande. But Sihayo is untouched. He leads the charge into the British line, ramming a spear into the chest of 1 white man, then spinning with it and tearing out the throat of a second. Usuthu! The first British line overwhelmed, the attack continues on to the second. Sihayo fiercely attacks, ignoring the white guns. Waving his war club, he brings it down on the skull of a British soldier. Victory! He raises his spear and shield to celebrate, but there's one last shot. Sihayo gasps in shock and pain as the bullet rips through his chest. The last words of the shaman drift through his head as he collapses. No man may kill you. No man. As the light in his eyes fades, the last thing he sees is a terrified drummer boy holding a smoking pistol with both hands as other warriors swoop in to avenge him. Far away, the shaman coyly smiles. Killjoy, History Minute. Page 7, panel 3. The British troops call Shihawa crazy bastards for charging right into their stickers, but I only see one soldier with a bayonet on his rifle actively blazing away at him. Al-Qaeda could have probably tweaked that panel, but it's a very small gripe. The Anglo-Zulu War was fought in the first half of 1879 between the British Empire and the Zulu Kingdom. The most famous battle of the war was the defense of Rorke's Drift. Following the passing of the British North America Act of 1867, forming a federation in Canada, Lord Cameron thought it was a similar political effort, coupled with military campaigns, might lead to a ruling white minority over a black majority, which would prove to a large pool of cheap labor for the British sugar plantations and mines, encompassing the African kingdoms, tribal areas, and Boer republics in South Africa. In 1874, Sir Bartle Frere was sent into South Africa as High Commissioner for the British Empire to effect such plans. Among the obstacles were the armed independent states of the South African Republic and the Kingdom of Zululand. Frere, on his own initiative, sent a provocative ultimatum on 11 December 1878 to the Zulu king Cetshwayo, and upon its rejection, sent Lord Chelmsford to invade Zululand. The war had several particularly bloody battles, including an opening victory of the Zulu at the Battle of Isandlwana, followed by the defense of Rorke's Drift by a small British garrison from an attack by a large Zulu force. The British eventually won the war, ending Zulu dominance in the region. The Zulu kingdom was then made a protectorate, later annexed by the British Empire in 1887. As just stated, the Battle of Isandlwana on January 22, 1879, was the first major encounter in the Anglo-Zulu War between the British and the Zulus. 11 days after the British invaded Zululand in southern Africa, a Zulu force of some 20,000 warriors attacked a portion of the British main column consisting of approximately 1,800 British, colonial, and native troops, with approximately 350 civilians. The Zulus were equipped mainly with the traditional assegai iron spears and cowhide shields, but also had a number of muskets and antiquated rifles. The British and colonial troops were armed with a modern Martini Henry breech-loading rifle and two 7-pound mountain guns deployed as field guns, as well as a Hale rocket battery. The Zulus had a vast disadvantage in weapons technology, but they greatly outnumbered the British and ultimately overwhelmed them, killing over 1,300 troops, including all those out on the forward firing line. The Zulu army suffered anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000 killed. The battle was a decisive victory for the Zulus and caused the defeat of the first British invasion of Zululand. The British army suffered its worst defeat against an indigenous foe equipped with a vastly inferior military technology. Isandlwana resulted in the British taking a much more aggressive approach in the Anglo-Zulu War, leading to a heavily reinforced second invasion and the destruction of King Cetshwayo's hopes for a negotiated peace. More British officers were killed at Isandlwana than Napoleon killed at Waterloo. The word Usuthu means the horn in Zulu and was a traditional call to arms by Zulu warriors. Isikoko is a head ring worn by married Zulu men and was probably a status symbol. Isilangu, the title of the story, is a type of shield used by the Zulus, usually the cowhide type referred to earlier. In Zulu entomology, a kraal is a village surrounded by a fence of thorn bush branches, palisade, mud wall, or other fencing, roughly circular in form. And impi are Zulu regiments. Cetshwayo Kamepande, born about 1826, died February 8, 1884, was the king of the Zulu kingdom from 1873 to 1884 and its commander-in-chief during the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879. He consistently opposed the war and sought fruitlessly to make peace with the British and was defeated and exiled following the Zulu defeat. He was later allowed to return to Zululand, where he died in 1884.
All righty. Let that all settle in, folks, as I'm doing. Again, I don't read the history minutes and stuff until we record. I do remember vaguely seeing some movie about the Zulu conflict on like HBO when I was a kid, but that was it until right now. So extremely impressive effort on the part of the Zulus. I mean, they had numbers on their side, but man, whew, that's pretty intense stuff. Again, reality kind of trumping what we just read in the comic book. So speaking of what we just read in the comic book, we got some comments and commendations. And I'll say, these days, I don't exactly look forward to seeing Chuck Dixon's name in the credits of a comic book or really anywhere else. However, This story was published in the long ago year of 2000 AD/CE, before a lot of us, or at least before I, knew just how far along down the road his mind had gone. Okay, so that being said, and don't bother crying to me about it, I will now say this. I really liked this story. Sure, the art gets a lot of the credit, but the writing was excellent too. This was the Chuck Dixon that I used to seek out on purpose. Publisher and genre be damned. I mean, I would read stuff I never would have normally even picked up back in the day if I saw Chuck's name. And I still love all those comics. So again, shut up, hey. Things in this story kick off with an incredible splash page featuring a really cooking, yeah, it is kind of really cooking, really cool looking bottom page border design. And another host logo artifact, they're working it in there, that made me smile as well. The art is insanely cool all the way through, with panels 3 and 6 on page 2 showing some strutting confidence, working borderless panels into the page design without missing a single storytelling beat. And the dreamlike soft or bubble borders used on page 3 add just the right touch of mysticism to the proceedings. The flow of action on page 5 is expertly executed, with adherence to which force is at home on the left and right sides of the panels, keeping things clear even with all the chaos going on. And as far as it's a Weird War tale, you got to have a twist at the end. I really liked how Dixon took the very expected turn of events and set it on its head by not having it be a woman who kills our protagonist, but a child. I mean, you've got he could have went Macbeth, no child born of woman, and aha, I'm a breech birth, you're dead. Or he could have gone the old expected Lord of the Rings route. No man can kill you. She pops off her helmet, but I am no man, stab. But this was a new one for me. I've never seen it be a kid that breaks the magical protection by going, I don't see a man here, die. So very good stuff. Again, the 3 stories in a row, the streak is hot.
God damn those loopholes. As Max said, we've all seen Lord of the Rings, where Erwin runs her sword through the Witch King's face. Deal with the devil, you better make sure every I is dotted and T is crossed. There have been countless stories on this theme throughout the years. Most recently in this podcast, issues 42, Old Soldiers Never Die, where an American officer makes a deal with Satan that the enemy can't kill him, only to die when he steps on an American landmine. Dixon and Alcatena showed up to work here. Everyone did their research, and there's nary a killjoy to be found, though more of those old school translation boxes in a lower corner of a panel would have been nice. Not a lot of Zulu speakers on this side of the pond. Dixon found a great take on an old trope. Alcatena's work is perfect for this story. Page 3, panels 1 and 2 of the blind and one-eye shaman in his hut, surrounded by thorny branches and dangling skulls, captures the creepy AF tone required for the scene. The combat scenes throughout pages 5 and 7 are stellar. I could probably copy them all down and not feel too bad about it. But the hook, page 8, panel 4, of the kid leaning on the ground against his drum, crying with a pistol in his hands. Yes, this has high marks. 3 for 3. Let's keep on marching.
All right, let's see if we can keep the streak going. I'm going to take us back a few centuries or whatever in time. I'm not keeping track of the history here, but it was a long time before the story that we just read was even set. And that story is called The Spoils of War. It's 8 pages long. Script is by Robert Rohde, and art is by Frank Teran. That's Teran, because I've heard of Robert Rohde. I've never heard of Frank Teran, so I'm spelling that out for you all in case you've never heard of him. Synopsis starts out like this. Standing under a full moon, amongst arrow-riddled bodies and burning debris, Menelaus, king of Sparta, gazes up at a window of the silhouetted form of a woman, returning his gaze. The siege is over. The Trojan War is won. 10 years it's taken. 10 long years since Paris, Prince of Troy, chose to repay my hospitality by seducing and abducting my wife and queen, Helen. Now, at long last, I satisfy honor and reclaim what is mine from the pitiful remains of Troy's last dynasty. Old Queen Hecuba and 2 frightened princesses. Paris, dead. Hector, dead. All the sons of King Priam and King Priam himself, dead and burned. Of all the mighty house of Ilium, none but 3 feeble women persist. The Achaeans have had their vengeance indeed. Troy submits to her conqueror, Queen Hecuba says to the approaching Menelaus. Troy is ashes. I care only for Helen. She is within. What woman is worth this, Achaean? What woman merits so much death and waste? None but the most beautiful of all. Taking a torch off the wall, Menelaus begins climbing the stone steps towards Helen's chamber. 10 long years in this blighted, doomed land, with its cold, chapping wind blowing endlessly. 10 long years to bring this misbegotten Asiatic hinterland to ruin, to push it to the brink of starvation and then beyond. 10 long years since the war's first casualty, sacrificed to the gods at Aulis, so that the winds might blow and the fleet might sail. Iphigenia, my niece, killed by her father, my brother. Of all the dead, she weighs yet heaviest on my heart. 1,000 Argive ships, fitted out by Helen, but launched by Iphigenia. And what of those who followed? What of the multitude who died in battle to restore to me a faithless wife? Clonius of Boeotia, Tlepolemus of Rhodes, Apicius of Myrmidon, Diores of the Epeans, Helenus, son of men. We got Zulu in one, we got Greek in the other.
You're doing better than I would.
All right. Helenus, son of Enops, Esus, son of Sphelus, Lycophron, son of Mastor. The names are too many and too hard to say. They form a torrent of blood, all dead in my service, lost to restore Achaean honor, my honor. I must not think on it. And yet, I can think of nothing else. Those final sacrifices, those soldiers crushed in the bowels of our wooden horse. Yes, we gained Troy by deception, but at such cost. Noble Argives sent to the river Styx, cloaked in shame at the manner of their passing. Their unworthy deaths weigh upon me as well, but this must not be a day for black hearts. Honor is restored to Sparta and all Achaea, and Helen is restored to Menelaus. The Spartan king kicks open the door to Helen's chamber. By all the gods, another crone. I will not be made a fool by this defeated race. She will lead me to Helen. You there! You cannot but know why I have come. So I do, my lord, the withered crone answers. Menelaus is stunned. That voice. No, 10 long years. Cold, chapping wind. To the brink of starvation, and then beyond. I bow to the judgment of my rightful king and the authority of my lawful husband. Is this victory? The gods have tricked me. Where is the beauty that so beguiled Paris, that launched 1,000 ships, that drove Troy to ruin? And yet, I cannot turn away from her. I cannot go to Nestor, to Ajax, to Odysseus, and Diomedes, and Idomeneus, and all who shed blood to win her back and say I no longer want her. Menelaus helps Helen to her feet, kisses her, and guides her down the stairs. Agamemnon slew his own daughter. Achilles lost his boon companion. Boon companion. I am bound to Helen forever. else I risk their rightful wrath. The gods have tricked me. I am bereft. Achaeans! He bellows to three of his troops as he exits the building. Bodies fill the courtyard. I give you Helen! Stunned protest is quickly silenced. Achaeans, conquerors of Troy, and most favored of the gods, I give you Helen. And he thrusts her bony arm to the sky. Helen! The troops automatically roar. It was the morning of the world, and humanity had much to learn. That glory is an illusion, that honor is ephemeral, and the spoils of war may be spoiled in the getting of them. The end.
No killjoy. Plenty has been written about Helen of Troy and the Trojan War over the centuries, so I won't fill up the space here with a history minute, but I fully embrace the believable plot twist at the end. WWT 39 had its own spoils of war story about pearls that weren't really pearls, if you recall. As I just said in my last CNC, the theme to this story has been done to death as well, but I like the story here. Not a big fan of Turin's ink-heavy art, but there are lots of elements in this story I could point at with an approving nod. Page 2, panel 3, there's a laughing Achaean warrior, at least I assume it is, with a cut throat that definitely deserves a linger. The ghostly image of the Trojan horse on page 5, panel 1, and the then and now panels on page 6 of Helen are great story amplifiers, as is pretty much all of page 7, where Menelaus realizes his fate. This one won't win, but it's far from bad. This book is just clicking.
Yeah, and as far as you've said, like things have been done to death, every story's been told, in my opinion. There's only so many plots that can involve human behavior, and I think they've all been written. It's all down to execution, you know? And as far as the execution of this story, I'll just say, hey, more floating panel work. 5 stars, moving on. I actually like the darker tones and the somewhat muddy inks on display here. I mean, they are muddy, they are pretty heavy and dark, but it's set up a nice disparity for me from the way these tales of ancient Greece are often depicted, with bright colors and heroic physiques abounding and so forth. I will say, though, that there is some serious laziness afoot on page 2, with panel 5 featuring a cropped, copied, and pasted image of the exact same drawing from panel 3 on the very same page, with the cowering, surviving women of the conquered people of Troy. It's literally a copy and paste. It stands right out to me. I'm like, you did all this work and you took a shortcut there. Okay, all right. But on page 3, the shift to soft blue tones follows the shift in mood of the story nicely, which is what comic book coloring should do, in my opinion. And the combat that follows on page 4 is messy and ugly. Again, this was a nice departure from the more idealized tradition regarding the portrayal of ancient Greek tales. As for the reveal, like I said, I get it, but I couldn't help but see it through my modern lens. It all still clings to the sole value of Helen being her physical beauty, which I know is part of the myth and part of the legend and all that. Right down to our hero still privately feeling punished by Helen's diminished state. I guess he hasn't looked in the mirror in a while. He don't look too great throughout this entire story. But no thought is given to Helen the person and how horribly traumatized she must be at this point. Just her former status as a garage station calendar pinup model. Oh well, still a very cool tale. And let's see. Oh, Rich, it looks like it's your turn to read the next one, right?
No, the hell it is. You know what? I wrote the script. I think I'll give this. I think I'll give this one to you.
Yeah, right. Fine. I knew you'd call that in at some point. As you could tell people, we're taking you into the next fantastic story in this issue. Just strap yourselves in. It's a real humdinger, and it's a real something. And it's called Mind Field. M-I-N-D. Get it? That might be the high point right there. It's 8 pages long. Script is by Bruce Jones, and art is by Paul Pope. Come on, right? All right. Synopsis gonna be here we go. I'm gonna try. All right. The muscular bald man wearing a white tank top likes his new house, though his responsibilities are enormous. And he says to himself, the whole story has these little, first person narration captions. I saw a small roach today. Tried not to let it upset me. The former owner said they would come, but could be said they would come, but could be kept in abeyance and would be gone with winter. From my window, I can see the yard, the hills, the green mountains beyond. Beautiful. There's only one America. But there is dust. I must clean habitually. The little eye of the TV watches me. There's nothing on it. Way out here, and I don't have time anymore. My responsibilities are enormous. Rained all day, and I had to stay inside. Saw 2 more roaches, the bigger ones. I consulted the computer for what to do. Thank God for the computer. It told me the necessary steps. Cleaned house all day. Not a big house, but it seems big here alone. I could use a woman. Ha! Who couldn't? I miss the medication, but I'm told I'll do fine without it. I work hard on the house, so I'm tired enough to sleep. An exhausted sleep keeps the dreams in abeyance. Rained all day. Brings out the roaches. Big ones now, and the old methods aren't deterring them. I consulted the computer. I'm always amazed by its simple logic. Ignore them. Easier said than done. Still, I manage. When the rain stops, I'll walk the grounds, get some fresh air. I can tell the medication's working out of my blood. My dreams are less random, more vivid. I was warned about this. Be careful, the computer admonished. How about a nice game of chess? It worked. Chess always distracts me. I hardly noticed the roaches today. What if the computer breaks? I asked it. Count the raindrops, it replied. Sound advice. Well, this place is infested. They're even in bed with me now. Shrieking and dancing about seems to do no good. They only become more aggressive. I've taken to simply letting them trundle over me. I know what they want, but the cabinets are well sealed. Well sealed. Still, I wish they'd leave. The house has grown smaller with them. I can't see the computer screen when they swarm all over it. Can't play the chess. Beautifully clear day today, but I can't go out in the sunny yard. It's teeming. Had an interesting talk with one of the bigger roaches this morning. Very convivial chap. Give us what we want and we'll leave, he says. Yeah, sure. Why don't I just leave the whole house open to fill with dirt while I'm at it? He was very patient. Fine. I can be patient too. Well, the computer's gone and I'm not surprised. Interior console is a mass of roaches. I rallied by cleaning house and even stealing a few cat naps. I can feel them in my sleep, but I just follow the rules, pretend they're not there. I dreamed of a beautiful garden. No roaches there, but someone lives there all right. Woke up this morning to find the roaches had removed my cranial vault. The brain has no feelings, but I knew they were squirming around in there. Well, let them. They'll find nothing of any use. It's amazing what the human mind can accomplish, even when assaulted. I cleaned the entire house, even the small attic, though part of it was missing. I long for the computer, the chess. I found out who lives in the garden. A lovely young woman. We tarried among the roses and ate the sweet fruit. I saw a small roach beneath a fig tree, but paid it no mind.
More of the roaches attempted conversation with me today. I mostly ignore them. Don't make us use force, they said, pleasantly, then proved it, I suppose, by gnawing off my left arm. Fine, I can clean perfectly well with the right. Took a long walk with the girl in the garden later. She undressed for me. Lovely sight, and smiled. Whenever you're ready. I kissed her breasts, but held back entering her. Probably not wise to lose control. With both legs gone, I can no longer clean the house. The roaches sat around me all morning and spoon-fed me my brains. Idiots, as though the human mind were the only fountain of logic. I chewed contentedly and visited the garden. Halfway through making love to the girl, she turned into a roach. I had anticipated it. The whole garden is filled with them now. The fruit is dripping with rot, and the water rancid. Just give us what we want, the roach girl said, as I was coming. I told her to go to hell, and she giggled and pecked off my genitals. The house is filthy now, the yard worse. Spent the day watching the invaders try on my old clothes. It seemed to entertain them. Their shit is everywhere. For an intelligent species, they are amazingly lacking in hygiene. You're going to die today, they giggled. If you don't tell us. Fuck 'em. I sleep all the time now. There are more gardens where that came from. Woke this morning to find the house decorated with my organs. My heart was beating bloodily in the fruit bowl, trailing arteries. They left me only one good eye to enjoy the sight. Tell us now, and we'll spare you the pain. I thought they could never get past my pain defenses, but they did. I watched my head scream all afternoon, where they'd placed it on the mantle. It all took some time, but the blackness finally came. The pain faded. Then I saw the light, the tunnel, and the clouds beyond. 6 angels greeted me, one of them kissing away the last remnants of the pain. I have lived here amid the clouds and perfumed gardens now for 5,000 years. There is no need to sleep. All is beauty and truth and cleanliness. Walked the gardens with Joseph again today. Told me my spirit was healed, but still troubled, and asked why. I told him I didn't know, but he said, yes, you do. I told him of the house, of my endless cleaning, of the roaches. He smiled and put his gentle arm about me. What is it they so coveted from you? He asked. I told him. He laughed and patted my back. We laughed together. Then he became a roach and clicked his mandibles at me and thumped his carapace in triumph. The other angels buzzed around, all becoming roaches, all laughing at me and pointing. And when I laughed too, that stopped them. Never send all your troops to a single battle, I explained to them. You never should have followed me here. Not here. The man then places a bug bomb on the floor and activates it. Afterwards, he dons a gas mask, opens a fallout shelter door, and leaves toting a shotgun. We go back to the first-person narration inside the comic pages, which goes like this. Cloudy today, but the computer says no poison rain, so I may go out. If I have time, that is, after all this cleaning. I was away far too long. By the time I make it to bed, I'll be exhausted. No dreams. Tomorrow, I'll start repairs on the attic. Perhaps play some chess. I like the new house, though my responsibilities are enormous. The end? All right, so Rich didn't find any killjoy in this, so I guess I'll kick off the old comments and commendations on this one. All right, so Bruce Jones is a writer I am mostly familiar with for more or less causing the end of my longest uninterrupted string of reading an ongoing comic book series. I don't tend to cite it as my favorite series, that's Gru the Wanderer, but I read The Incredible Hulk in an unbroken string of issues from the mid to late 70s, all the way up to, well, when Bruce Jones took over as writer. I don't remember much about those issues, just that they were what finally made me say, maybe I can stop reading this comic book. I may not recall what it was about those stories that made me quit, but if the work on display in this tale is any indication of Mr. Jones's writing style during his Hulk run, I feel pretty justified in ending my own run with the start of his. Here's how I know the script for this story was really bad. 2 words, Paul Pope. I haven't seen a ton of Pope's work, but everything I have seen I've really liked. Even here in this story, he's got a very distinct style for sure, so I can see it not being to everyone's taste. And he's a good visual storyteller too. And a lot of the stuff I have seen by him, he has also written, so he knows what he's writing. And so it makes sense that his storytelling skills seemed good in all the samples I've seen before. So that only stands as an even more damning tribute to the outright lousiness of this script. Pope's imagery in this story is clear and compelling, but it just can't attach itself to anything resembling a proper narrative. This so-called story is just a collection of ideas and images, barely strung together by overly minimalistic, and then this happened narration. It reminds me of a film student's first artsy project, or like a first-year college student's creative writing assignment where they're like, I'm going to say grim and weird things and throw in some sex and some swear words because I'm an adult, full of vibes, but not actual substance. It's one thing for the main character of a story to be caught up in a fever dream, but it's another for the reader to be caught up in one too. This was a tragic disappointment.
Well, so much for that. This was easily the worst story in the book, art and script. And I think we have a new leader for the worst story of all the redeployment issues. So congrats, Danielle Zelzage. You're off the hook. I would actually like to personally apologize to our fans having to listen to this story. I think this is a day after Doomsday type deal, with the last 2 panels on page 7, 6 angels, appearing to be planes dropping bombs, and the last 2 on page 8 of bald guy leaving the shelter. But would the internet still be working? I suppose this is the classic tale of a sole survivor's descent into madness. Picture of the topless girl on page 5, panel 7 has a bit of a Picasso cubist feel to it. But man, the picture of him screwing the roach on page 6, panel 7 is just effed up. Maybe I'm missing some obvious stuff here, but I'm sorry, I am out. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. Quickly, on to the next thing, whatever it may be. And that might be On the Ledge. Little creative opinion piece that some of the artists have done. All the issues of the redeployment WWTs have one of these On the Ledge articles, but we read only issue 1's piece by George Pratt because it was relevant. We do it again here for the same reason in this piece by Chuck Dixon. Being a bit of a military history nut, I'm the type to pester vets for their war experiences. Most of the time they're reticent to talk about them, especially if they saw a lot of action. And the guys will spend hours telling you how, without me and Patton, you'd be speaking German now. Well, they're usually full of crap. The guys who saw the true face of war rarely want to speak about it. But when they do, what stories they tell. And the best stories are always the strangest ones. There's the Vietnam vet who told me of his first day in country when the Jeep he was driving was totaled by a water buffalo. He wouldn't give a bunch of street urchins any more cigarettes, and they sicked the family buffalo on him. There's the old Polish guy I worked with who told me about his years in a German slave labor camp. He and his friends escaped from that hell of deprivation only to have most of them die from overeating when they found some hidden food stores. And of course, there's my dad who told me perhaps the weirdest war story of all. Serving in the 8th Air Force in England, he witnessed a shot-to-hell B-17 come in for a perfect landing after a run over Germany. When the ground crews got out to the plane, they found everyone on board was dead. That one sent chills up my spine when I was a kid. Joseph Heller, author of Catch-22, the ultimate absurdist novel of World War II and a weird war tale if ever there was one, knew firsthand that war brings out the best and worst and the weirdest in human behavior. Heller, who died the same week that I wrote this, derived his story from his own experiences in Italy with the U.S. Army Air Corps flying bombers on 60 combat missions. He related things in the novel that stretched my suspension of disbelief to the breaking point, but which were later confirmed by my father to be factual. Sometimes the strangest stories really are the true ones. Check out the Weird War Tales special that's out now. You get a bunch of great stories and maybe a glimpse of the truth of war you can only see on the weird side. Chuck Dixon. Yeah. Joseph Heller died December 12th, 1999 at the age of 76. And if you haven't seen either the original movie or the miniseries on Hulu, let alone read the book, you're missing out.
Hey, I've done all three of those. I've actually read that book, saw the old movie, and loved the miniseries on Hulu. So what do I win?
Your prize is I get to keep talking. On to the next story. Esprit de Corps, 8 pages. Script by Greg Rucka. Art by the aforementioned Daniel Zuzulj. Monster is a muscular man in his 50s, wearing camouflage pants and sporting a ponytail. He pushes open the door of a hospital cancer ward and his shadow falls on a frail patient lying in bed. The two men have matching military tattoos on their wrists. With a tenderness one wouldn't expect, Monster picks up the patient and carries him out of the hospital into the rain, past a bound and gagged doctor and nurse lying on the floor. I found them, Ike. I finally figured it out. I know who they are. They're coming back. They're coming for you. You got to get ready, Ike. We're going in country. The doctor said no. I know, man. I know. There'll be hell to pay. There always is. Monster digs a hole in a forest clearing as the memories come flooding back. Sometimes I close my eyes. I see it like it's happening now. 6 of us in the valley of the Song Trabong. What a clusterfuck that was, huh? We're green berets. We're as bad as they come. And we walked right into it. Now, that's not true, is it, Ike? I was on point. I led us right into it. They tore us apart. Then it was just you and me. And I got hit. He pauses in his digging to take a pull in his beard and smiles. There was no way we were getting out of it, Ike. None. You were always stubborn, though, as much good as that did you. That's why they chose you. You don't know when to quit, dragging me to cover and trading fire at the VC alone. I thought for sure our next stop was going to be the Hilton in Hanoi. Then they showed up. I know what I saw, Ike. I know. A continental soldier from the Revolution. A cigar-chomping NCO of the Thompson. A black Union soldier from the Civil War. A camouflage Marine with a Garand and a bespectacled World War I doughboy. They formed a semicircle around us and opened fire on the attacking Vietnamese. They saved our sorry butts. When I got out of the hospital, I asked you about it. And you said I imagined the whole thing, said the jungle was getting to me. Told me to forget about it. I know what you were trying to do. Spare us both Section 8s. But you don't forget something like that. Throwing the shovel over his shoulder, he walks back to his cabin. Ike is asleep in bed, and Monster gently tucks his buddy in. Later, Monster bathes Ike, gives him a shave, and helps him into a Class A uniform. You deserve better than this. You served your country. Instead, they gave you cancer, stuck you in a hospital, waiting for you to die. You're a better man than me, brother. Reaching out to pick Ike up, Ike pushes Monster's hands away. No, I can do it. Leaning on Monster's shoulder, they walk out into the clearing towards the hole Monster dug. Monster is also wearing his A's. You really believe Monster? Ike stammers, looking into the hole. I do. No more pain? No more pain, Ike. The two men kneel on the ground facing each other and touch foreheads. Monster places a 45 against Ike's chest and fires. He wraps Ike's flag-draped body in the grave, then fills it, finishing the effort with a homemade cross marker. I can see it, Ike. Clear as day. I can see it. All you ever wanted to do was serve. You'll serve forever. You'll serve forever. Turning from the grave, Monster sees the same 5 soldiers from before, now joined by a 6th, Ike, tan and fit like he had been in Vietnam. He smiles at Monster as the sergeant of the Eternal Squad gestures for them to move out. Killjoy! There's something about the dress uniforms on page 7 that looks like they were Marines. Marines aren't Green Berets. It's not real clear, but it's just a vibe that I get anyway. Moving on to the CNC. Reading this story quickly reminded me of the Green Beret Master Sergeant who lived across the street from me when I moved into my wife's house after we got married. Like Ike, he served his country and got poisoned by Agent Orange in return. This was well before I enlisted, and I only met the bedridden Vietnam veteran a handful of times before he died in 2001 at the age of 63, a little over a year after this book came out. He rests for eternity at nearby Gerald B.H. Solomon Saratoga National Cemetery. And then I visit him from time to time. I didn't care for Zelzudge's work in the redeployment WWT number 4's Salvation at all. And I have to say, in some ways, it didn't improve much in 3 years. Inks are still real heavy. Pretty sure he has the same colors from last time, too. Lee Luffridge. Lots of oranges and browns, except for page 1, where there are blues and greens from hospital scenes. And again, it's the writer that totally saves the day and keeps me from tossing the story into the dustbin. I started the script with this story, actually. There's just something about the camaraderie and the tenderness of the two veterans that Rucka captured perfectly. But to be fair, Zelzudge's work did improve. I actually have more than one art call out this time. Page 1, panel 5, Ike recognizes Monster and seems to know why he's come. Page 3, panel 6, the smile during the pause in digging Ike's grave. All of page 4, the Eternal Squad saving Ike and Monster's butts. Page 5, panel 6, Monster gently tucking Ike in is well captured. Page 7, panels 6 through 8. Panel 6, the forehead touch as they silently say their farewells. 7, the sky turns red as Monster fires and the blood sprays from Ike's back as the bullet exits. And 8, the birds flying away from the trees in response to the shot. And lastly, the move out panel that ends the story. To be fair, this one was definitely in the running for winner of the issue.
Yeah, pretty darn good one, I gotta say. First of all, it wouldn't be me if I didn't at least tip my cap to. There's another attempt at a host/logo image this story here, so I'll take it. And yes, as for Danny Z's art this time around, I really liked it. His storytelling's clear on these pages. The coloring, as you mentioned, is used, in my opinion, really well for setting the mood of each scene this time around. I feel like that other story, the colors weren't really connected or changing, that they weren't used for any purpose. But here, for example, on page 5, panel 4, the view we're given of the bike and the cabin is not only an interesting visual element of the page design, but a great piece of storytelling, serving the purpose of, in the movies, an establishing shot. Me being me, though, I must point out my deeply entrenched brain damage couldn't let me absorb the very poignant intent of the scene depicted in panel 4 of page 6, where Ike insists on standing up on his own. Ren and Stimpy has a lot to answer for here. I can do it. Just, that's all. Like, whenever they put a line of dialogue like that in a story, I hear it in Ren's voice. So, but then all of pages 7 and 8 right after that go ahead and fire off on all cylinders with excellent pacing and perfect use of coloring. I gotta say, this was a very unexpected high point for me. And I gotta add, putting the weird in there, like finding a place for the weird when it's just a friend helping someone who's dying of cancer have some dignity at the end. Finding a way to put the weird in there with Monsters, hallucination of the spectral soldiers saving them, not only fit the the theme of this series, but I felt like tied into, after Vietnam happened, we suddenly actually got stories, and in the pop culture it entered into people's minds that, hey, war might do some damage to your brain, it might mess with you a bit. So it became like something that you could actually put in a war story. I'm sure it existed a little bit before then, but it was much more acceptable after America went through Vietnam. So it was a great way to work in the whole weird theme for the series here. So anyway, I gotta say, like, I saw that art team again, and I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but I liked everything about it. So let's see how the issue finishes off. And that final story is called A Prayer to the Sun. It's 8 pages long. We've got a script by Darko Macan, that's Macan, and Edvin Blukovic. Art is also by Edvin Blukovic. Synopsis for this finisher goes like this. This one is going to require a touch of explanation before we get into it, as it turns out. Over the course of the narration, the art panels present examples of man's inhumanity to man in war. Marching through history, we'll describe the scene in a sentence or two after the narrative voiceover. So, okay, kicking it off with panel 1 here, and we'll follow on from there. Don't come up, son, I tell you. A headshot of a young brunette leaning against a bamboo wall. The narrator, I beg and plead in vain. The same woman from farther away, sitting on the deck of a hut. Stone weapons are scattered about and a man sleeps inside. For you never listen. A Mesopotamian temple towers over a desert village. Am I asking for much, son? A slave child hands the pharaoh a golden helmet. It's only for one day, I plead. A legion of spear-wielding Greeks march out of Athens. A mounted officer gazes at a woman in the foreground. A day for him to be just mine. Romans and Huns engage in savage hand-to-hand combat in a snowy woods. I envy you, son. Knights and Saracens brawl on horseback. You get to have the best of him. Vikings burn and pillage a town. The prime of his eager body. Christian knights, spears and arrows jutting from their bodies, lay dead and dying in the desert and surrounded by mounted Saracens. The burning passion of his heart. Blade-wielding samurai charge through a marsh. The eternal fidelity of his soul. Arrows fill the air as 2 armored armies clash. The summits of his joy. Spanish conquistadors smile as the rain washes Aztec blood away. I hate you, son. 2 women scream and struggle as enemy troops prepare to have their way with them. Because you hate me. A woman with 3 small children walks past 3 mounted soldiers, going the other direction in a muddy street, towing a cart filled with sick and injured men. Because you don't care what happens to me. Leaning against the wheel of a covered wagon and surrounded by the dead, a woman loads a musket as Native Americans swoop in to complete the massacre. Because you don't care what happens to him. A sailor's head breaks the surface of the sea as a ship of the line pours fire into another vessel that's burning and sinking. Because you don't care. Napoleonic troops march through town as the locals beg. You simply don't care. British troops are overrun by attacking African tribesmen. Possible reference to the previous story with Chuck Dixon there. You are a cruel god, son. Union and Confederate dead lie intermingled on a battlefield. But you are his god, and I have no choice. German troops wearing gas masks approach an Allied trench filled with dead and wounded, and I will pray to you once more. A British pilot bails out of a burning fighter as Spitfires and Messerschmitts tangle in the skies over an English city. Please let him come home tonight. U.S. troops pull back under fire to a waiting Huey helicopter. Please, son, don't come up in the morning. A woman hanging sheets outside is shocked by the return of her soldier husband. Let him be mine. As the sun sets through window blinds, a couple embraces in bed. The end. And got a little killjoy. I'll read it though. This is a short one, and this is more on my my territory. On page 3, panel 2, we got a sighting of horned Viking helmets, people. They weren't real. All right. So comments and commendations for this very unique tale. I'll lead it off and say this was a risky effort, as you could probably tell by me trying to read it to you, let alone me trying to read Mindfield. But hey, back to this story. Hanging a tale that spans centuries on a script that will only display about 150 words of first-person narration in total to the reader. The visuals show up for work here and in a very big way. I guess since the artist was also the co-scripter, there's a chance for a pretty high level of synergy. And that's what we get in every kick-ass panel of this story. The art delivers the message at every step, right from the zooming out effect used in the 3 panels of page 1, kind of foreshadowing the theme of universality and serving as an overture for the entire tale in musical terms. The narrator's relation to the scenes does the same in a way. It's one voice speaking in first person, but the events are decades and even centuries apart and from places all over the world. Page 5 was a standout for me, focusing on her place in this eternal cycle, the non-combatant that is nonetheless very much a part of the conflict. The casting of the sun as an apathetic god of war was a nice touch too, inverting the usual imagery of the sun bringing light and life as we think of in our more modern perspective. Like I said, a story like this is a risky endeavor to pull off, but this time it came through in a big way. It was a nice little triumph of idea and execution to cap off this issue.
These Vertigo WWTs have definitely had some very creative stories in them as far as visual presentation goes. And this one certainly ranks with them. Every page has 3 landscape panels on them. The more I looked at the story, the more detail I saw. I'd never heard of Bukovic before, but I'm all in. Page 3, panel 3, the dying perforated knight in the desert. On his knees, he's taken his helmet off, half leaning on his sword, framed by the legs of a Saracen horse in the foreground. He knows he's dying, and so do we. Page 4, panel 3, the smugness of the conquistador pisses you off a bit. The priest flashing across in the background don't help either. Page 5, panel 1, the woman in the foreground raked her fingernails across her attacker's scalp. And speaking of scalp, panel 3, one of the natives has collected one. Unless that woman's taken captive, she's not going to get that shot off, and even if she did, that woman is about to join her son in death. All of page 7 is great, from the horse with the empty saddle grazing in the distance in panel 1 of the Civil War scene, to the wounded soldier gazing at his pistol and clutching a photo of the girl he left at home as the Germans close in on panel 2, to the accurate airplanes in panel 3, you know that's a thing for me, and the 2 homecoming scenes in the last 2 panels on page 8. More outstanding stuff. So, the story is over. But you turn the page, and it's the same second panel from page 8 of the husband coming home to his wife. It's all in black and white, with dedicated to Edvin Blukovic, June 22nd, 1969, December 5th, 1999. Bukovic's obit appears in this book right before Mindfield. He'd illustrated Human Target in various Vertigo anthologies and had received the coveted 1995 Russ Manning Best Newcomer Award. His parents took a month to name him after his birth, finally settling on naming after Edwin Buzz Aldrin, who had just landed Apollo 11 on the moon. He died in Zagreb, Croatia, due to complications of a recently diagnosed brain tumor at the age of 30. As we said in the CNC, it's a damn shame. His art was real solid. I would have liked seeing a lot more of him. He's only 6 months older than me. We're practically the same age. He'd be 55 now and still have a lot of living left to do. Fuck cancer. So, from there, ads, as usual. The DC Vertigo books are hard on good ads, but I quickly decided on the 7th annual Wizard Fan Award ballot. Is this really an ad? I don't know. So flex your muscle. The 7th annual Wizard Fan Awards are upon us, and it's time for you, the comic fans of the world, to determine what's the cream of the crop in the comic world. Each little box below represents a different category, Each category contains 5 nominees determined through a Wizard World online poll. And it's, what do you do? And it's all the usual, vote for one and only one entry in each category, multiple votes, disqualify, blah, blah, blah. It says, ready? Then grab a non-leaky pen and go. And it's, favorite writer, penciler, inker, painter, colorist, letterer, editor, hero, heroine, villain, supporting character, online series, favorite one-shot or mini, favorite publisher, favorite comic merchandise, comic TV or movie project, and comics greatest moment in 1999. So what's the greatest comics moment from 1999, you ask? Well, let's find out together. Beaten and battered Avengers confront Ultron, Avengers number 22. Death of Karen Page, Daredevil number 5. Public's discovery that Superman's married, Superman 152. God bites out Jesse Custer's eye, Preacher 49. Midnighter crashes ship into Gamora, Authority number 4. Thor defeats the Dark Gods, Thor number 12. And then, everything's got a write-in category too. So, hey, Wizard, step on it. Deadline, March 1st, 2000. Yeah, I never did any of this crap. But it's always fun looking at, how dated, 23 years is, looking at some of these guys that were so hot at the time and everything. So, yeah, that was my pick.
Yeah, man, I gotta say, when you mentioned the Avengers being battered to near death by Ultron, I was reading that book at the time, and there was a big moment there, and I can't believe they didn't phrase it this way. It was Ultron had just had his way with the Avengers, and then another Avenger shows up on the scene, a little late because he was maybe distracted by defeating the Dark Gods in his own book, Thor. And he lands and he points his hammer at Ultron and he says, Ultron, I would have words with thee. And then he houses that robot. Just like you see Thor when he isn't holding back and he's like, you're a mortal robot. I know you're made of adamantium, so you're going to make a nice ringing sound when I hit you with this thing. So yeah, and it was drawn by George Perez. So even visually, that picture of Thor was something that really stuck with you. But there was another moment mentioned in that poll that's going to tie in with my spotlighted ad. So we'll get to that in a sec. I'll say, yeah, this book came out in the year 2000. Y2K. End of the world? Not really, but it actually almost was. If you know what went on behind the scenes to keep that little bug in check, it actually almost did take down everything, people. There's a ton of work that went into keeping that from happening. But specifically, though, it was also the coming of the end of the series Preacher. As, like I said, here's the tie-in, and I didn't plan this, but as shown on the house ad, for the Alamo storyline in this issue, Jesse's face takes up almost the entire page of the ad. This is the final showdown. Preacher. Jesse Custer's quest draws to a conclusion in Alamo. And Jesse's face, he's got a big old eye patch on there. So tying into one of the greatest moments in comics of 1999, there's where God bit his eye out right in that full page ad. There's a little tiny, compared to his face, image of the Alamo on the bottom of the page. So meanwhile, right on the other side of the ad, you also get a taste of what was continuing on in the House of Vertigo, making an effort to carry the torch for Custer and crew. And so trying to follow on in Preacher's footsteps and keep people interested in the imprint, according to this subscription ad, was the Books of Magic, which was I think the character's name was Tim Hunter, and it was sort of it came out before Harry Potter really hit, but it was just about like that. It was like a little kid at a school for magic and sort of the DC universe, because this was Vertigo we're talking about. So The Dreaming was another title set in Neil Gaiman's world of the Sandman. Hellblazer, which also featured work by our buddy Garth Ennis and various other really good creators from time to time. Preacher still on here as a book you can subscribe to because it's not quite over yet. Transmetropolitan, written by Warren Ellis, I believe art by Derek Robertson at the time. Flinch, which I know nothing about. And 100 Bullets, which I think Rich might have read, or at least some of. I know somebody, yeah. But I never read a single issue of that. I actually never read any of these books. I never really got into Hellblazer. I've read the odd issue here or there where Rich is like, oh, you got to read this one. So other than Preacher, I never really read any of these series. So pretty much when Preacher ended, that was kind of the end of Vertigo for me, unless Grant Morrison showed up and said, hey, I'm going to do a little mini series about some cybernetic animals that will make you actually cry. Like, other than that, I kind of walked away from Vertigo at this point too. So that's it. And like Rich said, these issues are very ad poor as far as anything cool to call out. But I think we both found a way, like the ads, the house ads and the industry ads, like it's really a time capsule. For people our age, it brings you right back to that time in the culture. What was on TV, the fact that we didn't have streaming, like just everything at the time. And I got to say, all things considered, I'm pretty glad that most of this is in the past. So here we go. Speaking of the past and endings and finality, I'm going to bring us to a little section of the show that we call Got Any Last Words? And I'll kick it off here, and I'll keep it short, I promise. And I'll say this one-shot special issue was, barring one story, a straight-up freaking triumph. Again, every story besides that one was not only good, in my opinion, but great. I'm not even going to pick a favorite because I liked them all a lot. There's really not one I would elevate for me. This was a fitting tribute to our beloved Weird War Tales. Even if they could have given us an intro page and some real host intros and outros. But I'll let them slide on that. It's the year 2000, and they see those things as hokey at that time, even though they were wrong. So barring all that, it's a damn near perfect issue, in my opinion.
I don't recall if we've ever formally dedicated a show to anyone before, but if not, I'd like to rectify that by dedicating this one to Master Sergeant Francis Daugus, as much a casualty of the Vietnam War as if he'd been struck down by bullet or shell. There's only one redeployment issue left, another giant size from 2010. I'm saving that one for the back half of the show's projected slate, somewhere after issue 62. A common gripe in the ongoing WWT book was that most of the stories took place in World War II. I have to imagine there aren't many comic tales from the Anglo-Zulu War out there, but there wasn't a World War II tale to be had in this entire volume, which, for the howlingly glaring exception of Mindfield, was all in all one of the most solid books we've covered in the show. An outstanding follow-up to the original miniseries. You already know I had to go with Imagine for the dub, but Esprit de Corps ended up talking to me a lot louder than I would have thought. Zelzage did just enough to vault this high on the list. This was an inadvertent complete package, one of the best stories of the run, and one of the worst. Gotta say that of all these redeployment issues have been a lot of fun, hoping that last one can put a bell on it.
Hey, maybe. And for those people who, as I mentioned, are trying to read some of these on the DC Universe Infinite app, maybe they'll get their act together and put the 2010 special on that app as well by the time we get there. As long as Warner Brothers and DC are still in business. I don't know what's going on with these companies right now. But anyway, that's it, people. That's a wrap on the issue. It's a wrap on the redeployment. Here's where I remind you, we have a really cool Facebook page, Weird Warriors Podcast Facebook page, run and administered by your good buddy Rich. And to show your appreciation for all the hard work he puts in to the show, to the Facebook page, and to keeping me from quitting, even though that's a mixed blessing, I understand. You want to do something to give back to Rich a little bit. You could go to redbubble.com. You could search for the Weird Warriors Podcast. You could get our awesome logo that was drawn and designed by Bill Walco of the Hero Business. online comic book strip. Get that image plastered onto any piece of merch your little heart could desire. Send us a picture of it. Again, using Messenger to the Facebook page. Send us a picture of you holding it or whatever. And Rich will, guess what? He'll give you something back. We still got a few Sam stars left. You don't know what that is? Maybe ask him on the Facebook page or, listen to some of our older episodes. And, you'll find out. Like I said, you're going to do something for us, and he's still going to give you more back. So you're lucky. You're lucky he's the partner on the show here. You're lucky he's the co-host, people. All right. There's no letters page for this story. So, as you may have noticed, there's not going to be an equivalent APO Weird War Tales type thing here. There's nothing really much to catch you up on the scuttlebutt. So, to keep it in character for me, I'm not really giving you much in this part of the show. So I'm going to call back to Rich, who again likes to give, and he's going to give you a teaser for the next episode of the show.
Weird War Tales 58. A Dictator Returns. A Blast from My Past. Imperialists and Indians. See you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile. And who will you see later? Who will you see in a while? Us. And who are we? We're the Batlin Bros. We're the Weird Warriors. And you know what this is? This is the Weird Warriors podcast. It's a podcast where we promise to make war.
No more.